Okay, on to prokaryotic cells. Prokaryotic cells are bacteria, and I don't want to date this video. Let's just say right now there's a very heightened response to people washing their hands, and bacteria cover everything, every single thing. Actually, we have as human beings, it's called normal flora. Flora is sort of like a population, and normal flora refer to the microbes that are a permanent part of our bodies: skin, internal organs. Not all of those are bacteria. There are some yeast. But then you have, during the day, you pick up what's called transient flora. That's the stuff when you wash your hands, you take a bath, the stuff you pick up touching things. Those could be pathogenic, but they're very simple cells. This is a prokaryotic cell. Same thing, I gave you a picture for this. There's the prokaryotic cell model. They're very simple. And bacteria, depending on the species, they can divide every 20 minutes, some of them. Sometimes they can take longer. But I'll go through all the little parts. They're very simple. They really don't have membrane-bound organelles. They have some of the parts that a eukaryotic cell have, and then they have other things that a eukaryotic cell does not have. So the nucleoid, we'll start there first. See this whole area in the middle with this all the twist? That is one long circular chromosome. Most bacteria have one. Now, as of late, there have been some that have been discovered that have one long one and one shorter one. But they're very simple, and this is why they can adapt to things so easily. They have one chromosome, and they're one cell. Human beings have 46 chromosomes, and we have 75 trillion cells. So we do not adapt to things as easily as these little guys will. So the nucleoid, it's not a nucleus, but yeah, since the DNA is there, it is the part that controls all the cell activities. Yeah, it does not have a membrane surrounded it. There's no nuclear membrane or nuclear envelope. Ribosomes. So to keep from scrolling around, see the little dots inside? Yes, they do have ribosomes. They are pretty much the same structure as a eukaryotic ribosome. They're a little different, but they do the same thing. They're involved with protein synthesis. Now, let's say this bacteria cell, this little prokaryotic cell, if you take this cell and you put it in a completely different environment, the first thing it's going to have to do is going to have to make enzymes for energy conversion or synthesize those. And the section would be copied along the DNA. It would move out to these ribosomes, and they would have to make new enzymes. When you transfer bacteria in a lab somewhere, they have a growth curve, they call it. There's an initial part where there's no growth of cells because they're getting accustomed to their new environment, and then it will go up from there. It's called the log phase. The lag phase is when they're not dividing. But those are ribosomes. Yeah, well, made of RNA and protein, yes. The cell membrane, now, yes, they do have a cell membrane, and it is very comparable to a eukaryotic cell membrane. This is the PowerPoint that I gave you. So I was using kind of a video, some pics, but look, see the channels, and same thing. Polar heads, nonpolar tails, or hydrophilic heads and hydrophobic tails. The channels, the little parts coming off, like this, phospholipid bilayer. So they also have a cell membrane. And you can see it, and sometimes they're called plasma membranes as well, but see it's represented here, the very inside layer there. Now here's where they are really different than a eukaryotic cell. Cell wall. Human beings, we do not have cell walls. A rigid outer layer. It actually holds the cell together. Penicillin, which is called the magic bullet, probably one of the greater discoveries ever as far as what it did to average lifespan in treating infectious disease. Penicillin prevents the cell wall from forming. And when that happens, then everything on the inside kind of falls apart. So there's the cell wall. You can see it's pulled back here. So cell membrane or plasma membrane, cell wall. And then not all prokaryotic cells have this, but This one has a capsule. Function: most prokaryotics are surrounded by a cell wall. It provides structure and shape for the cell and protects it from osmotic forces. We'll get to that at the very last video. Capsule. Yeah, it's called a gelatinous sticky substance on the outside. Most pathogenic bacteria have a capsule. Capsules prevent them from being broken down by other cells. It allows them to stick to a substance. Glycocalyx is kind of another way of saying capsule. It's using glucose to make it. Composed of polysaccharides. These chemicals are produced inside a cell and are extruded onto the cell surface so they can make a capsule. And it's like a sticky outer layer. This one happens to have a capsule. What's unique about bacteria, if you were to mix bacteria that do not have a capsule in the same test tube with bacteria that do have a capsule, pretty soon they will all have a capsule. It's usually beneficial to them. And like I was saying, most pathogenic, like staphylococcus, staph infections, they have a capsule. The immune system has a harder time breaking down these cells if they have a capsule. So that's kind of unique to prokaryotic cells. Protection against desiccation, which means drying out, allow survival of immune system defenses, and allow cells to adhere to a surface so they can stick to it. Another unique thing, plasmids. This is like what one looks like. It's a ring of double-stranded DNA, and they usually carry, they're called luxury genes. These are things that can be exchanged between cells. Once again, human beings can't do that. There's a plasmid in this picture. Let me back up a little more. What they are rings of DNA, and they carry genes. And once they get inside of a cell, the cell will read the genetic code along the DNA strand and then make whatever that particular phenotype or product is. A lot of times it's for a capsule. If you have a bacteria that does not have a capsule and it acquires a plasmid that has the genetic code to make a capsule, then it can make one. They also carry what are called antibiotic resistance genes. There are plasmids in the world that can be exchanged between microbes that allow it to be resistant to penicillin and the products of penicillin. So those are also unique to prokaryotic cells. So they carry genes that can be beneficial to bacteria cells, antibiotic resistance, immunity. That's a capsule part. So those are really interesting, and we have some man-made ones. There are experiments that can be done in college labs where you can take bacteria and you make them acquire a plasmid that has the bioluminescent gene that jellyfish in the ocean have, and you can make that bacteria glow in the dark. Do a little experiment, grow the new offspring that have the plasmid, and go from there. It's kind of cool. Flagella, same thing, move the entire cell. Sometimes they can have multiple. This one has one. Sometimes, well, it looks like it might have, that could be something else, but these are called pili here, or fimbriae. But yeah, that whole flagellum, and they can have multiple flagellas around the entire cell as well. So movement of the entire cell. Allow it to escape harmful environments. Bacteria have flagella. They can have singular ones or multiple ones, and some do not. So that's a really quick. Prokaryotic cells are very simple. I'll just point out a couple other things. So there was the nucleoid. Pili, which I now see that, those actually can connect to other cells. They can transfer genes that way. These are fimbriae that go around. Fimbriae are like Velcro, allow them to stick to surfaces. Not all bacteria have those. And inclusion is an area like this where they can store water or air. Escherichia coli that you hear about, or E. coli, they actually can put air in their inclusion so they can float in water. This one's showing cytoplasm. So there is a jelly material inside there. But they don't have any of the membrane-bound organelles. No mitochondria, rough ER, smooth ER, Golgi apparatus, none of that kind of thing. All right. Plant cells. So I'm going to get rid of this guy now. Plant cells are also kind of, they have their own unique structure. They do have a cell wall, which is rigid. Cellulose, which is a polysaccharide that the cell walls are composed of. We've already talked about these. Remember, a chloroplast, they have chlorophyll, the part that's involved with photosynthesis, so the whole light-dependent, light-independent reactions. Chlorophyll is a pigment that can absorb light. That helps power photosynthesis. And, well, we're not really going super detailed. In fact, I just realized now we didn't exactly talk about one of the things with the eukaryotic cell. But so here's a nucleus. Here's the nucleolus. It says chromatin, same thing. Plant cells, their DNA, and plants can have 1,000 chromosomes, but you can't see them till the cell's about to divide. It says nuclear pore, nuclear envelope, so all that's very similar to a eukaryotic cell. Vacuoles or vesicles, which is this thing. Looks like it stores some water. We didn't really talk about vesicles. They can move things in and out of cells or store water inside them. They're like little membranes. There's some mitochondria. Golgi apparatus, we can cover that. Smooth and rough endoplasmic reticulum, cytoplasm, cell wall, cell membrane, and then cell walls. Eukaryotic cells do not have a cell wall. Plants are crunchy. The biggest difference is, in their ribosomes, is the chloroplast. That's the part that had the stacks. They're called thylakoids. The stacks are grana, but they're filled with chlorophyll. They absorb light, and that's where photosynthesis occurs. So really what's listed there are probably the important things to know. It says plant cells, like animal cells, are eukaryotic. And I guess what I meant by being, not the same. Eukaryotic human cells do not have a cell wall. That'd be the better way to say that. I said eukaryotes do not have cell walls. They do. Just human beings and certain things do not. A plant cell differs from an animal cell by having things like a chloroplast, vacuoles. In a eukaryotic cell, that's actually called vesicles. And then they lack centrioles, which are found in animal cells. We'll talk about those later. They help with cell division. But they also have several parts that are very similar. I'm going to go back here just real quick, if I can do that. Point out one thing, and then we'll stop this video. I think I can just do this. This green thing here is called a Golgi apparatus. Don't believe it was in your outline. I'll look after this. But what it does, this is the gift wrapper at Christmas. So here's the rough endoplasmic reticulum. And here this is connected. Anything that leaves a cell, it has to be wrapped up in one of these little vesicles. And that's being released to the outside here. Like that could be skin pigment, all kinds of stuff. But that there is called a Golgi apparatus. It's a pretty major organelle. And if I skipped over it, I didn't mean to. Let me go back. Cell walls, nucleo. So that's prokaryotic. Nope, I don't see it. Okay, well, a little extra information. All right, I will start with cell movements in the next video.